Today we're counting down the 10 biggest Steam launches of week 34, so let's start at number 10 and work our way up. Number 10, Gallipoli, a World War I multiplayer shooter from Black Mill Games. The game launched on August 20th and reached peak of 3,803 concurrent players. It currently sits at 78% positive reviews from around 1,900 players. And judging by the reviews, Gallipoli knows exactly what kind of game it wants to be. Players describe it as a slower, more grounded shooter with bolt action rifles, deliberate movement, and a strong focus on positioning. One player compared it to a more arcade-oriented version of Verdun, while another said the game makes dying fun, especially when you're suddenly facing a Turkish charge in the trenches. But there are some complaints. Players mention slow movement and the lack of certain movement options like leaning. There's also a particularly annoying issue for ultra-wide monitor users, with one player saying that the weapon models takes up so much of the screen that it becomes difficult to play. Still, the overall reception is positive. Number 9. Project P.I.T.T, an $8.45 indie simulator game from Frog. The concept is difficult to explain without sounding ridiculous. According to one player, their job is essentially to feed rubber ducks to a giant hole, and apparently the working conditions are better than their real job. The review suggests that the game has a lot of charm, but also some rough edges. Building contraptions can apparently be awkward, especially when working with angles, and some players feel that progression can become unnecessarily tedious. So even when something goes wrong, players seem to appreciate how quickly the developer reacts. For an $8.49 indie game, that's going a long way. At number 8 is KOTAMON. My sis found a super rare card in her cereal box, so I became a garbage man to find the entire collection and earn $1 million. Yes, that's the actual title. This indie simulation game launched on August 20th and reached 4,728 concurrent players. The basic idea is actually as absurd as the title suggests. You're cleaning up garbage while hunting for rare collectible cards, and players seem to genuinely enjoy the basic gameplay loop. One review calls the cleaning and card collecting surprisingly satisfying, with cute artwork on both the cards and the trash. But there are some serious technical problems. Several players report issues with the save system, including upgrades resetting or saves being impossible to load. Others complain that progression becomes extremely slow, with upgrade costs increasing rapidly. So while the core idea seems to work, the current technical issues are holding it back. Now let's slow things down and build a town. Number 7. Hearth and Hamlet. The concept is pretty straightforward. You start with a small settlement, assign workers, gather resources, upgrade buildings, and slowly turn your camp into a proper town. And for many players, that's exactly what makes it work. One reviewer described it as a chill and cozy city builder with enough content and difficulty to stay engaging, while another praised how well it runs on Steam Deck. But not everyone agrees that it's actually that chill. Some players dislike the fact that you're eventually forced to maintain a militia, which introduces increasing costs and combat into what initially feels like a peaceful city builder. Others expected more freedom when customizing their towns and found the progression too predetermined. So the reception is pretty clear. If you like incremental games and gradual progression, Hearth and Hamlet seems to be doing something right. At number 6 is yet another zombie survivors. The name might sound like it belongs to an overcrowded genre, but players clearly don't seem to mind. The big strength here appears to be progression. Players love being able to experiment with different builds and reset their upgrades without worrying about permanent mistakes. And because progression carries nicely between runs, there's always a reason to play one more. It's also getting a lot of love from Steam Deck players. One reviewer called it their new go-to game as father of two because it's easy to pick up, pause, and come back later. Another review went into significantly more detail about its portability, including one very specific bathroom use case. The important takeaway is simple. It's easy to play, satisfying to progress through, and apparently perfect for squeezing in a run whenever you have a few minutes. And for a $9.74 game with more than 14,000 reviews, that seems to be working well. At number 5, we have Starsand Island, a cozy farming and life simulation game. It launched on August 18th and reached a peak of 12,063 concurrent players, with 79.2 positive reviews from nearly 6,800 players. The reception is generally positive, but also pretty divided. Players love the beautiful world, house building, and sheer amount of things to do. One player with more than 160 hours called it a great cozy game, but other reviews are much harsher. Some players accuse the game of false advertising and say that relationships and story content are far less developed than expected. Others criticize the characters for feeling flat, the building system for being unreliable, and the multiplayer implementation for being frustrating. In particular, multiplayer is locked behind hours of single-player progression, and some players complain that progression doesn't carry over properly when joining someone else's game. So, while there's clearly a lot to like here, the reviews suggest that Starsand Island may need some work before it reaches its full potential. Number 4. Shao Song I. Shao Song I reached 12,933 concurrent players after launching on August 19th. Its overall Steam rating is actually pretty strong, 83% positive. But there's an important detail. Among English language reviews, the score drops to just 50%, and the reviews explain why. Some players appreciate the fact that large-scale FMV games like this are relatively rare, but even positive reviews criticize the storytelling, saying the pacing can be difficult to follow and that some narrative choices feel childish or illogical. Other players are much more negative, pointing to a confusing interface, slow menus, poor playback, and technical issues. One reviewer even reported problems during the third chapter involving repeated data error messages. So this is a good example of why looking only at the global Steam percentage doesn't always tell the whole story. Shao Song I has a strong overall rating, but its reception varies dramatically depending on the language of the reviewer. And now we're entering the top 3. At number 3 is Mortal Shell 2, the new Souls-like from Cold Symmetry and Playstack. It launched on August 20th and reached 43,658,000 concurrent players. The game currently sits at 76.7 positive reviews from more than 8,000 players. Interestingly, the English language source is higher at 82.4%. Players seem particularly impressed with the combat and overall feel of the game. Some reviewers say it feels like a clever evolution of the original, with better movement and combat. The second biggest launch of the week is Call of Duty Modern Warfare Beta. The reception is anything but positive. The game currently has 37.9 positive reviews from nearly 5,000 players, putting it firmly in the mostly negative category. And there are several recurring complaints. Call of Duty attracted more than 115,000 players, but getting people to launch a game is clearly not the same as making them happy with it. And finally, at number 1, we have a game that nobody expected to dominate this week. The biggest Steam launch of week 34 is How to Fish, and it isn't even close. This isn't actually a serious fishing simulator. Players describe it as a chaotic multiplayer game involving fishing, drinking, gambling, guns, crime, and apparently a lot of birds stealing your catches. One reviewer said they caught 3 fish, committed 17 crimes, shot things that probably didn't need shooting, and still learned absolutely nothing about fishing. Another player described the game as essentially doomed with gills after punching a boss fish and shooting its friends with a shotgun. And then there's the recurring theme of playing with friends. Players seem to love the fact that the game is simple, cheap, and completely ridiculous. So that's the top 10 biggest Steam launches of week 34. Let us know in the comments, and we'll see you next week for another Steam Top 10.